today, who is a visionary, blending business, wellness, and purpose, which is such an amazing combination. I think so needed in the entrepreneurship world, and I can't wait to hear her insights because she's been working with entrepreneurs and corporates for over 20 years, delivering growth programs and blending all of this this mixture of, I believe, that every entrepreneur should really have in their toolbox, right? But I'll let you, Dina, speak to us about it. Thank you so much for your time. How are you?
Hi, Angelica. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit more about, how has this a journey of delivering growth programs in corporates to leaders, and how have you come about to doing this, and what are you seeing around also this combination, which I think it's such a strong combination. A lot of companies might focus only one of them, maybe on the wellness, or maybe on the growth, probably
Mhm.
not so much even on the life purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that is so important. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, sure. So I was that business that I've been in the training industry in various aspects of training for my whole career. And what I focused on in the earlier stages of doing corporate training was really on the business part, the business growth. How do you make more money? Because that's the ultimate goal. No matter how you focus, the ultimate goal, or I guess the metric that people focus on most frequently, is profitability, naturally, right? And so that's what I focused on, and our company was successful at doing that. The company
Mm-hmm.
that I was running at the time, but then I had this experience, which included I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, in the U.S., and we had a hurricane in 2004, Hurricane Katrina, which people may be familiar with,
Yes.
and that natural disaster devastated not only the business that I had at the time, but also the lives of my employee base. I had over 50 employees
Oh
at
yeah.
that point. And our friends, our family, our employees, all of the people in the whole city were impacted, many of those losing everything that they owned, some people even
Wow.
losing their lives, not in our company, fortunately, or in my family, but what evolved from that occurrence. So that's a big occurrence that happened in my life. What evolved is this: after the hurricane came through and we were closed and all our corporations as well as individuals were impacted, I had to shift, as the owner and the founder of the company. I had to shift into, I didn't have to, I wanted to, I guess I had to,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to shift to help those employees that had worked with our company for so long to be able to survive, first of all, through this challenging time, but then to thrive and to move forward. And so what I figured out through that process really is that when I was seeing the way that I could impact people and I could help them focus on what really matters in their lives, then
Mm-hmm.
all of us, the performance was better. I was feeling more fulfilled from that interaction. So as soon as I shifted away from focusing on profitability and focused more on impact and purpose and what really matters, my whole outlook about how we do training and the importance of training really shifted. So that's when I did that small pivot at the point from focusing on just growth or profitability to then adding in that element of purpose and what really matters. Later came the point where I was feeling, as entrepreneurs, we go up and down in our journeys from having really stressful periods and not so stressful periods. I
Yeah.
um I uncovered yoga, and
Yeah.
I started practicing that as a leader to help me handle the stresses of the business specifically, and then of life beyond the business. And I realized after years of practice that I was a better leader and a better at accomplishing things that were in front of me when I took care of myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
I went really deep on self development, which is a common theme in my life. um, around yoga, around nutrition, around wellness, around all of those things that I could bring into my personal life to feel better and be better and perform better, not only at work, but at home too. So then, kind of the revelation, fast forward to now, some of the programs that I'm currently offering in the company that I run now, and that is the uniqueness is the combination of those three pieces I just mentioned. So we're definitely keeping the growth piece in there because that's critical. We have to make money to do good too, whether we want to make money for ourselves or make money to impact the world. That's an important part. So growth and impact from that. The second part is well-being, so taking care of ourselves and also helping take care of our employee base or our clients or our contractors, whoever is in our universe. So helping them take care of themselves. And then the last piece, of course, being that purpose. So helping people. Most people started a business for a reason, and sometimes it takes some conversations to help them drill down to really what their why is and what their purpose for doing this is. And so one of the programs I have now that I'm really excited about is those three pieces. We combine them together, and those development of the habits that feed each of those three areas really, we see a big impact from that.
Amazing. Going back, I have so many questions now coming up. Like going back to that time that you wanted to help the people to thrive through that challenge of the Hurricane Katrina. Like so let's say like you're saying, you had a company that you employed 50 people, and you wanted them to connect again to their own. Well, not connect again, but you realize that you needed to get them connected to a purpose, right? A why, like why going for that challenge, so it could kind of propel them to move forward. Was that still working for you, or was that potentially in a different capacity? How did you go about that? Because I feel that 50 people is a reasonable size of company, right? And I left corporate because you can't help but feel just like a number. And of course, after I had gone through cancer, it's kind of like that challenging time for me was like, well, it wasn't not so much that I felt like a number, because I really enjoyed what I did. I used to work in recruitment, but I kind of felt disconnected with kind of any why, because the company never really instilled that in us. You either enjoyed what you did or you didn't, and I think that money has always been a motivator for me, but because it was a sales job. But really, what motivated me was the recognition of different things. And I think that is really interesting to for entrepreneurs, especially nowadays, when you are growing a team, to think about like, how can you bring people on board that are going to be connected to this why, because not everybody is going to start their own business, right? You probably experienced that with the 50 people that you had working for you.
Yeah. Well, so you bring up so many thoughts as you ask that question. And I think ultimately, to your point exactly, whether or not they connect with the why of the organization they work for, do they feel like they matter? And so, and that ties into employee engagement, which is really one of my favorite topics as well, because we know that if people are engaged, then that means that they do their job well. They come to work and they perform the job as expected. We notice that if we can move them from engagement up one level to full engagement, and when full engagement changes the ball game, that means they really care about the future of the organization, not necessarily because hopefully they connect with the why, but not all do, to your point. But what changes there is they feel like they matter. They feel like their voice is heard. They feel like when they give input that it might shape, how we move forward as an organization. They feel like the organization or me as the founder care about them and their family, and if they're going through a tough time at home. So you can create, and 50 people is small enough that you can still create that. It is more challenging than when you had 10. but you can create that if that's important to you. And what I think I know happened for me after Katrina was it really said, okay, I don't care about profit. Now I have to have profit to stay alive and in business and
Yeah.
grow, but that's not what's driving me anymore. What's driving me is to help other people find fulfillment by coming to work and working in this organization. And so that after that process, some people decided they didn't want to work anymore. They needed to stay home. And there was a variety of decisions made after that, understandably. But to this day, and that happened in 2005. So it's been almost 20 years. To this day, that transformative experience impacts the way that I work with everybody that I work with, whether it's as a leader for them or as a coworker or as someone who works for another leader. I'm always looking for, why does this matter to me as an individual? And so I take that same thought and apply that to the individuals I work with. So in our programs, that's what we're helping entrepreneurs that are growing. So some of the entrepreneurs in the program might be a solopreneur. They may be the only person in the business. That's not uncommon. Others might be at 10 employees. Others may be going to their 200th employee. The concepts apply across the board. And as you grow, the challenges are different because you have to figure out, how do I accomplish that now that there's 100 people that I have to take care of rather than 20. But that is a piece that has really grown in our programs as we continue to evolve these programs, so that we know that we see the light bulbs go off. People get really excited. Another piece of it, this ties into Hurricane Katrina, but it's a different story. So almost 5 years, 4 years later after Katrina, we won. New Orleans Saints, who is our NFL team, they are based in New Orleans, won the Super Bowl. We had never done that before. And what happened that night at when the Super Bowl was won, and it wasn't played in our city, but we were all in our city. When they won that game, the whole city poured into the streets in celebration. And it was another life-changing event, a life-changing night of pure joy, elation, community, and bonding with people that were not like the other people. Yeah, we were all very different, but it didn't matter what our background was, what we looked like, what our beliefs were. We came together because we had this common elation around this event. And I bring that up because that's an example of full engagement, all understanding what we needed and what mattered to us. And I often will share that story in my programs, and I'll say, what if, as an entrepreneur, we could get people on the same page with that feeling of purpose and fulfillment? And if I had taken the individuals that I was around that night out in the streets in the community and started a company, we could have done anything.
Yeah.
If you could duplicate that kind of feeling, which is not an easy thing, but it's a thought. If it's important to the founder, it's a thoughtful way to grow the organization, retain employees, have full engagement, and 100% of the time there is going to be more profitability if those things can happen.
Of course. What would you say is the challenge of the solopreneur and then an entrepreneur who's got maybe a team of 5 and 10? What it is kind of, the challenge to achieve that, kind of level of.
Yeah, well, of course, the challenge with the solopreneur is going to be that you don't have the people. So who are you engaging? Who are you trying to bring with you on this journey? And so the answer to that really is around partnerships, collaborations, finding alignments that for you will make your organization stronger, but you still only have one employee. You're only paying one person. So where can you align? And many times that's going to be partnerships or I think collaborations are just one of the single best ways for a solopreneur to elevate their story. You've got other people who understand your purpose and share some commonality around a goal or a vision or something that you realize together we're going to be stronger and can reach more people. So now you're amplifying your message without employing more people. So um, that can be challenging as well, but that alignment is going to help with success. I think beyond that, as you start to grow to 5 or 15 or 20, and then eventually more employees, it really comes from having the time to spend with people to get to know them, what's important to them, making sure that they feel seen and heard, making sure they understand how their role in the company. This is another piece that is commonly missed as larger corporations start to bring employees on board. Frequently, you don't know how many times in large companies that I'll ask a person that is not a founder or not on the executive team, what is the mission of this company? And many people can't say it. So they don't understand. Employees, when you get the larger numbers, frequently kind of get lost in the shuffle from a standpoint of not understanding how what they do every day actually helps the company be more successful. So I think it absolutely comes from the founder or the acting leaders to communicate effectively so that people understand my job. Maybe it's answering the phone, but how critical is that to communicate effectively with our clients that are calling I don't know who's calling in. It could be a new client. It could be $1 billion client. I don't know. But that's how important I am in this organization to make sure that we're giving the care and the service to our customers, just as an example.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think, like you mentioned before, and it comes from the leader to create that culture, isn't it? That energy that kind of
Mhm.
really entangle people in that kind of vortex of like, this is what we're doing together here. It's so easy to just hire people that to do a job and that is
Mhm.
motivated just to get a paycheck or just for money or whatever it is, and not,
Yes.
be
Yeah.
in sync with everybody else, right?
Yeah, I agree. And there are going to be people, of course, that the thing driving them is to make money, when you hire for positions. But so maybe they come in with that goal. I'm just here to make money. But then they get ingrained in your culture and figure out, oh, I am here to make money, but I'm also making a difference. And maybe they uncover what they're really good at and be able to be focused on a purpose. So it kind of it shifts, it shifts somewhere along the way, and that's where the success really comes in.
That's amazing. Now back to the yoga. Yoga. I practice yoga 3 times a week, and I became a yoga
Nice.
teacher after cancer. Yoga has been probably one of the most important tools on my healing box for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially like around like stress, because yoga really allowed me to connect to my body because I lived outside my body for so long.
Hmm.
And I really think it's it's much more than what the Western world um,
Hmm. Yes.
sells, right?
Yes.
Like it's just you can still go to a yoga class and completely be disassociated from your body and from the stress that you're
Hmm.
feeling, and then come out and feel like, oh, I've just done a workout.
Yeah.
Yoga, it's like a science. There is,
Yeah.
it's not, is like, it is a science. There is so
Right.
much research
Yeah.
behind it, right? Like how did you started incorporating that? Because I believe that there's so many entrepreneurship burnout, right? There's
Hmm.
so many, I have been, and you probably have as well, on masterminds of people that were much younger than me, and they can't, after a year they burn out,
Yeah.
some of them to never be seen again. It's so sad to see.
Yeah.
So like how, it's so easy to talk about it, but I believe there is still not enough people looking after themselves, right,
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and also to your point about yoga. Yoga is more than the physical poses, as you're well aware. Um, Many people, most people, at least in the Western world, start yoga as a physical practice because they have some kind of goal around their body physically. But for those of us who have been practicing for many years, and then you don't have to become a teacher to get it, but becoming a teacher for me just helped me go really deep into the studies of the different aspects of
Yeah.
yoga. And um, adopting the pieces that felt good to me at the time, and then realizing that I needed to bring more aspects of yoga. Specifically, I'm talking about the mindfulness aspect of yoga.
Mm.
Like you said, you can go in there and treat it like a workout. Well, you've just missed a big opportunity for
Mm.
what this can do for you mentally, not just physically. And I would say frequently that my personal yoga practices are done with the intention of recognizing in myself I need a mental shift, whether that's a break from stress, or maybe I'm in a bad mood, or maybe I've got a reason to be sad. And those are all valid feelings, but yoga helps me handle those in a way that I didn't have the tools to do in the past. And so what I recognized is, if for my personal practice, is when I could bring that in and make sure that I was practicing regularly. So when I worked at a university running their entrepreneurship center for 6 years. And when I was there, it was a more traditional, not quite as entrepreneurial as I was or am now, where I run my own business and kind of set my own hours. But there it was a traditional all day job, 9 to 5 job. So I had to make sure that I scheduled myself, just like you mentioned, that 3 times a week I was going to take my lunch break or come to work early and make sure that I got those practices in. And so as I started to do that, I found that the other entrepreneurs that I was working with in our center at the time were also interested in and getting that energy. You can avoid that afternoon slump, right, in your
Oh,
energy,
yes.
incorporate some practices. So we started incorporating some of that into our programs, and you just saw energy rise, people feel better. And we have entrepreneurs and employees of all ages, and it's so rewarding and motivating, I guess, to see people that might be in their 70s still
Uh,
working, and when they incorporate these yoga practices, you're seeing their strength, them get up and down out of their chair easier. I mean, they aren't, incapacitated in a way, but it's easier for them. They're feeling stronger. They're able to recognize, I need to close my door, maybe turn off the light of my office for 5 minutes to focus on my breathing. They start to recognize these healthy habits that truly lead to a more fulfilling day and better performance within their work. And so we've been putting it into some of our programs kind of in small bite-sized pieces. We formally now have added it into our modern leadership program. So there's a whole segment that's around well-being. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just about your well-being as a leader, which is the critical part. That's where it starts. But we also talk about tools for pushing that down throughout your organization. Or if you're only one employee, then how do you help the people you're collaborating with, the other companies that you're working with, come along with you on this journey of, it's really the whole package, if we can incorporate that into habits. And the good news is that you hear the term corporate wellness more and more now. That didn't used to be a thing. So it's a term out there. Some companies are doing it well. Some companies, I believe, are doing it just to say they're doing it, and it's not very impactful. So what I want to do, and what we're doing in our programs, is when we work with entrepreneurs, is when people finish the program, they're like, wow, I want to see lasting change. So 6 months from now, the people who went through our program, whether it's with well-being or with growth or around purpose, did that impact how they're acting 6 months from now, or the success of whatever success metrics that they track, are those better because they engaged in our program? So that's really the bottom line.
That's amazing. And I mean, like, even if you're talking about numbers, I can imagine that, like, things like sick leave will be reduced, like,
Yes. Yes.
mental health. There's so many things that leaders are having to deal with, like, in
Mhm.
this state and age, which they didn't have like 5 to 10 years ago. But by incorporating something like that,
Mhm.
I mean, I am confident 100% that they will see like real results in, even in numbers, that you
Yeah.
can't help but see it. What would you say is the biggest challenge for, again, like, let's say for, somebody who is a solopreneur, or somebody who's got a 5 to 10, 20 people team, to incorporate something like that, like a wellness program or strategy, if you like, like what would you say the biggest challenge is?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that entrepreneurs say is the biggest challenge is right away going to be time and money. How much do I have to invest in this? How do I, make time for this? We're already working 8 or 10 hour days to meet our goals. We're exhausted by the end of the day. I can't really demand or expect people to do that. And so I would say, and that's part of the strategic aspects. And we talk about strategy a lot. And strategy is just making a plan for success. So what does that look like? That looks different for every organization. And so I'll answer that question more directly, but I also want to say that is another differentiator, a uniqueness in our programs, is that not only do we have these group discussions where we'll talk about the habits and we'll do some live exercises together and things like that, but in addition to that, we layer on that group time together one-on-one with either me or one of our mentor team members that will help you then take the concept of bringing wellness, for example, into your company and say, okay, let's talk about your company specific. Let's talk about your budget or your challenges and come up with a strategy together that you really feel is adoptable. My answer when the response is cost or time, my answer is you can start at pretty close to zero cost. As you know, there is so many things
Oh yeah.
accessible just online on YouTube or even Instagram, various places. If you're looking, they're there. And then the second piece is I always tell people if you're resistant to doing yoga or meditation is probably, I find even more resistance there. Let's
Mm,
start with 5 minutes, 5 minutes
yeah.
twice a week. Let's just start there. Or maybe we start with some chair yoga in at your desk where you're not even standing up.
Yeah.
So we'll give you some tools that are low cost, low time commitment, and then almost every time you start to see those times grow longer or at least more frequent. So ultimately, for yoga, if you seriously do 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a week, if you're doing the right practice, you're going to feel so much better
Yeah.
that you're going to want to keep doing it more a little bit longer.
Yeah, and like you said, like you will want to do more as a person. Like I started
Mhm.
with 5 minutes during
Yep.
chemotherapy. Like
Yeah.
so if I did it, anybody can do it. Like I just feel like, if people say like I don't have time, or even I don't have the energy, I know people can do it because I've
Yeah.
that's that's what I
Well, and the
started.
thing, your example of going through your cancer journey and your chemo, I mean, that for you, you had just a crystal clear purpose. And that
Mm,
was to live, right? And to thrive and to be present and to be healthy. And so when people have a clear purpose like you had, it is much easier, I'll admit, to
mm,
convince people to try things. So if people don't have something literally that is a life or death scenario, it can be harder. And that's why we do have a method. It's a method called the dig, where we take people one on one. I take people one on one through a process, through their life story, to help uncover some themes that help them identify um, their purpose. So if people are like, I have no idea what my purpose is. So we do have a process in our modern leadership program that will help you with that. Some people come in and absolutely know what their purpose is, or what we actually boil it down to one word as we go through the dig method, that people leave with the word supported by some other words that is their operating system that they can just keep at the forefront of their actions, really.
yeah, I think that is so important what you said right now, because when you don't like you said, we tend to wait until that they're diagnosis, to have the purpose, right? To have or
Mhm.
that challenge, that you kind of can't go any further the way that you are going,
Right.
to change. And if somebody came in and helped you identify, and it could be that you're working in a company, but you are focusing on wellness so you can go home and not give the worst of yourself to your family or whatever,
Absolutely.
or,
Yes.
which I did that, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure many people do that because you're trying to do your best at work and there is nothing left because you don't fill your cup every day.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a massive purpose, because you're going to become a better mom, a better wife, whatever it is. But people haven't got the capacity alone to think that when they are just living on that automatic pilot.
Right. And I think that's a great, I love that you just said that they're running on automatic pilot. I think so many people in this world are running on automatic pilot and they don't even realize it. So part of the practice, and this, I would include this under our yoga practice, part of that practice is having the discipline to slow down enough to recognize that you're on automatic pilot, or recognize that, we can't find our car keys because we didn't pay attention to where we put them. Just little mindfulness things start to snowball and make a much bigger impact. And that can be hard. So one of the entrepreneurs was telling me that, when they have a really tough time right now with from a financial perspective in their work. And they said, when I go home, I'm always in the worst mood. I have 2 young kids and a wife, and I don't want to bring that in. So what he said his practice is to stop at the front door before he goes in the door and take a couple of breaths and shift his mind to what really matters to him, which is not reflecting anything other than joy and love to his family when he walks in the door. And so he developed this small habit. It's a very short habit to take that breath, reframe his mind, even if it's not how he's really feeling, to go in there. And then, although it might not be how he's really feeling when he walks in, when he's reflecting joy and love, he starts to feel that because he's getting that back from his family. So I think it's just an example of what you just said, taking a moment, recognizing where you are mentally, and how do you shift that? Some days, it can be very challenging.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example of something so simple. We know it's not simple, right? We know it's not simple to leave behind a stressful day, especially if you are the person responsible for, people's paycheck and like all the rest of it, or all the stuff that you're carrying. But well, I know for a fact, after going through cancer, that when like, life is short. There is priorities in our life, that when push comes to shove, nothing else matters but the people that you love. But recognizing that without the daring diagnosis is quite difficult.
It can be difficult, and it also can be difficult to recognize or make the connection between that. When you're at home surrounded by your family, then it's a little easier to kind of bring, with practice, to bring that to the forefront of your thoughts. But when you're at work at 3:00 in the afternoon, maybe you have an hour commute and you're in a corporate environment, it can be really difficult to make that connection. So part of what we work to do is help. How do you feel that even when you're not in your home environment? And that can be tough too. So there's all kinds of little habits and practices that we introduce. We don't expect, and we know, and I know this from my own practice, that I'm not going to adopt all of them, but I'll try them, see how they feel. Journaling is another great example. Journaling for me is not a practice that I've adopted that I feel works for me. I keep trying it because so many leaders in our well-being and wellness space tell us that that's a great practice. So I keep going back and doing it again. For me, it's just doesn't bring me what I'm looking for, but meditation does. So that's just an example of how we don't expect, or it's not necessary to adopt all of these practices. You find the ones that really do resonate, and you start to feel these little shifts, and how you're physically feeling and how you're performing and your energy level, and how you're bringing that to the work that you do every day, whether you're a one-person shop in your home office or whether you're in a company with lots of other people.
I love what you said about, you keep talking about the word habits, and same, journaling is something that I keep trying, but it doesn't, I much rather meditate, and I meditate every day. And I think that different habits work for different people, right? But until you try and you retry and you try for a few times, you won't know.
Right.
But I think also we're living in a world that there is so much talks around, for example, trauma and emotions and unresolved things that we have in ourselves. And I think it's important to talk about that. But I think that to in my mind, to simplify things, we are a collection of habits at the end of the day. Whether
Mm-hmm.
you have gone through trauma, big trauma, small trauma, whatever it is, at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, we have just been practicing habits that, it's like riding a bike, right? Like if all you know is to get stressed, all you're going to do is get stressed. So
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally, you can go to the psychology and talk about your trauma for the rest of your life, but you're only going to change as a person if you change the habit of
Right.
how you react to
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
And those little things that you're talking about is what builds a different baseline, and also like it builds a different you, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. You evolve through these processes of these habits that you're talking about. And I also think, sometimes people don't realize, and you mentioned this a bit as well, that they don't realize that they might not be calling them habits, but they're their actions. The actions that they're taking are not positive. They're not leading in the right direction. So the example that I've used in the past is like your bank account. So say this is where your balance is. So when you take an action, is it adding to that balance in a positive way, or is it bringing you down? And of course, we're not talking literally, but then recognizing that if you're doing these actions or habits that are taking you down below, then before you even get to neutral, to go in
Oh
there
yeah.
and be pleasant to other people, you've got to do this work to get here and then come up. So it just makes it a much steeper climb for you. And so part of the exercise that we'll do is have people for a few days just recognize, do these actions, every couple hours, did the actions that I just spent the last couple hours doing, did they make me better? Move closer toward my goals, or did they move me the other direction? And it could be
Mm.
things like, we know social media can be a time suck. It could be a positive thing, but it can also be something where you find yourself sucked into spending a lot of time there. And so you find out that you're really down here. And so
Mm.
how do I adopt a healthy habit where I can still go do that if
Mm.
I want to, if it's important for my business, but come away with it leading me closer to those goals.
Yeah, and social media is almost like it is a drug. You think you're doing
Mhm.
something because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm learning, I'm watching another video, but
Yeah.
you are not doing anything, because until you practice that into your day to day life and you actually take the action that maybe you learn from this video, it's
Yeah.
worthless, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so tempted to kind of have this false sense of like, oh, I'm evolving just
Mhm.
because I'm watching videos about healing and whatever, growth
Mhm.
and entrepreneurship. But when it comes to actually taking the action, if you're not taking any, transformation only happens when you take action.
Something changes. Yeah. And I think I'll go back to so the two programs that I specifically focus on in this conversation are around business growth. So we have business growth acceleration program, which is a 5-month program. And then we have the modern leadership series, which is a 3-month program. And I'm bringing that up because it aligns perfectly with what you just said. So all of us, and I know you and I have been in programs together, so we're learners. We like to learn. We like to evolve and continue to make ourselves better, and that's great. But unless, to your point, you take that back and create an action, then you just maybe wasted your time. And so that's why I spread these programs out over a little bit longer time, so that we not only engage in the conversations and the learnings, we are not only then layer on some one-on-one mentorship to help you put those actions together, then we circle back around and talk about what is the exact action you're committing to for the
Mm.
next week. And then we come back and talk about it the next time we get together, so that you can say, you know what, that didn't feel good, or that didn't work for me, or
Mm.
that was amazing, and I'm going to do that a lot more. So I find that a lot of times when we do, whether it's through social media or through YouTube's or through programs that we pay for, that we bring all that info in and we're motivated, we're excited, but ultimately 6 months from now, we're not doing anything differently than we did before we invested in that. And so that's another piece that's really important to me, that when you come into one of our programs, when you leave, like I said earlier, I'm going to check back with you or keep in touch with you. And 6 months from now, are you doing things differently in a positive way? And are you seeing impact because you did make this investment? So that's something that's really important to us when we work with people in these programs.
Amazing. So how can people reach out to you to, talk about those 2 programs that you have at the moment?
Yeah. So through Instagram. So my Instagram is _FINTA.
Yeah,
So
I do.
certainly sending me a message. Yeah. Or if you go to my profile, there is a link tree there that will take you to the website that outlines the programs in more detail. You can schedule through that website a direct call one-on-one with me to learn more and see if this is a good fit or which one is a good fit for you at the right timing. And then secondly, you can also join a wait list through the website as well.
Awesome. Oh, Gina, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate all your insights, and it's just been incredible. Learned so much here myself. So excited for this program. I think it's so beautiful that you are combining the life purpose as well, which is something that I believe is very, very different than what other people are doing out there. And it's so, so important. And, I found myself that in my own life, and I've read so much about this. It's, it's all part of like the longevity.
Yes.
Having
Yes.
life purpose is like a longevity tool, and for
Totally.
me, I became obsessed about that, like how can I live a longer and healthier life? And I think, having a life purpose is a big part of it. And I think that's beautiful.
I agree. Thank you so much for having me today. I enjoyed this chat. I look forward to talking to you more.
Awesome. Thank you.